welcome to Visionary Ventures. I'm your host, Curtis Jenkins, and this is a conversation about realizing your vision. Every episode, I sit down with someone else who has succeeded in achieving their vision. So today, I am sitting down with someone who I've long admired. It's probably the first time he's ever heard this, Sulaiman Rahman. But before I dive into that conversation, I want to share a quick insight on crafting your vision from my book, The Art and Science of Vision to Reality. I want to talk about what I call cognitive dissonance. This is the brain of the CEO. It is natural for us to want to resort back to the status quo because it's comfortable. And sometimes we get comfortable even doing uncomfortable things for a very long time. And we need to get better at figuring out that we don't want status quo. Status quo is not going to grow your business. Status quo is going to keep you where you are. And actually, if you stay where you are, you're going to be really diving instead of growing. There's a couple of things around cognitive dissonance. That's the status quo bias. You want things to go back to where they are because they're comfortable. But the other is confirmation bias. That is, you've already created in your head that you want that if you try something new and it doesn't work, you were right. Just because it didn't work don't mean you stop. You have to keep trying it, especially when somebody who's done something tried and true has done it. They've already proven that it is right. So you have to get out of your own mind. And this is where they really misdiagnose what problems are and what's happening. I work with entrepreneurs to just keep trying to build the muscles to try this new thing until it becomes a part of them, until it becomes a new status quo, so to speak. Those are some areas that I see where CEOs and business owners really misdiagnose problems. Sulaiman is the CEO at DiverseForce, a human capital solution firm that specializes in recruitment, retention, and development of top diverse talent. DiverseForce works with clients across all sectors to actualize the power of diversity by building robust pipelines of talent for the future of work, leadership, and governance. Sulaiman currently serves as the Vice President of the Board of Directors at Community College of Philadelphia Foundation, Board of Trustee and Executive Committee member for Mastery Charter Schools, Board member and Governance Committee for the Kimmel Center of Performing Arts, Board member for Lenfest Institute of Journalism, and Board member for Lendistry, a fintech social enterprise currently valued at $300 million. Sulaiman also serves on numerous advisory boards and committees. Sulaiman, welcome to my show.
Glad to be here, Curtis. Thank you for having me.
So, Sulaiman, I always like to start with my guests by diving straight into their background. And I like to frame this conversation in terms of vision. I will say personally that I've watched you build the UPPN network and what I would call Party with a Purpose, and to where you are today. So I'm a fan. So when did you begin envisioning what you've created, and how did you begin to turn this vision into a reality?
I would say, Curtis, so ever since I actually started with urbanphilly.com about 20 years ago. So 1999, actually, started a professional network, actually a social network. While I was at University of Pennsylvania, I was one of the few Black students who was from Philadelphia, who was at University of Penn. And I was the go-to for what's going on in Philadelphia. Most of the students at Penn were on campus and kind of in this bubble on campus and never really ventured out into the city. And, back then, before the Facebooks and other, social networks, to find kind of those events that were kind of more associated with professionals and places that some of the students were coming in the town, felt comfortable and safe attending, they need to kind of have the underground kind of insight and the word of mouth around events. So we started a website called urbanphilly.com, where professionals of color could post events, and you had neo soul and all kinds of cool things at the 5 Spot in Philadelphia, and some other things that were happening. So we actually built a email list of over 30,000 subscribers at that time, and had over 3,000 event marketers that used the website. So we were kind of an intermediary to really help integrate Black and brown professionals into the city. Then that evolved into UPPN with the mission to engage, empower, and connect the next generation of business and civic leadership. And now, it's DiverseForce. So I would say the idea originated, at least the first iteration of it, back in 1999, 2000, when email was disruptive, a new technology, if you will, for many.
Wow. Yeah, I was that guy at Drexel University, but I didn't have any of those tools that you had. What I used to do was I'd leave campus, go to my grandmother's house and sit by the phone. And then I would take calls and call everybody and tell them where to be. And sometimes that was at Penn's campus at Houston Hall. So
yeah. What year was that? Because I used to throw Q parties at Houston Hall back in the day.
We're talking early 80s.
Oh, okay. A little bit earlier than me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. I didn't have the technology. It's much easier to connect the dots as we look back on our careers. So why don't you tell me some of the key moves you made that was instrumental in your success?
I've always had a lean towards technology and efficiency and processes, although I'm a visionary and not necessarily one to like to implement those things, but always like to have broad systems and ways to streamline. So I think that we've been able to be a lean team, if you will, as we've been able to build it. We've been able to, the great thing is by having a professional network, we've had the opportunity to network with great people. And I think everything rises and falls on leadership and the people around you. So that's been one of the greatest assets that we have, is being a connector, making deposits into Black and brown communities. And as a result, being able to have access to resources, people, and build a good reputation over the years, that people, kind of reputation precedes you walking into the room and able to get things done a lot easier in that respect.
You've certainly done a great job with that, my friend. And, one of the things I talk to people about when I'm helping small businesses is that your company is really made up of two things, and that's the people and that's the cash flow, right? I mean, you can argue operations, marketing, all those other things, but those are two key elements. And I always talk to people about their employees, but I also tell them that they should put themselves in positions to build accountability. And I think that really helps leaders to grow, right? Because now you're not worried about leading other people, but you're learning from people that are, watching you and that you have to be accountable for. And that's why I always advise people to do advisory boards. So I really want to talk to you about what you're doing with diverse boards, and why are you so passionate about getting minorities represented in the boardroom?
Yeah, I believe my philosophy is that leadership, or actually that diversity, equity, and inclusion starts at the top of the organization, and therefore in the boardroom.
Yep.
I did not know how much I didn't really know much about boards until I started serving on boards myself, which early 30s, I had the fortune of being able to, serve on a board for the African American Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia, and then was elected to chair the board for the African American Chamber of Commerce in 2010. And that put me in a position and a seat to really see and start to network with some of the leadership throughout the city. The mayor at the time, Mayor Michael Nutter, appointed me to serve on the board for PIDC, which is another, large institutional board here in the region as well.
Yep.
And since then, I've served on a number of boards throughout the years and realized the power that you have at that table to make a difference if you understand board governance. I always say, it's not about having Black and brown faces in high places, but making sure their presence is felt in the boardroom. And it really goes back to me recognizing that there's a really thin line between prosperity and poverty, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And, I look at my father, who I believe is just, very smart genius in my eyes, but he found himself addicted to crack and living in the projects. And but when you hear about his how he grew up, you can understand how he could have gone the wrong direction. Same thing with my older brother and younger brother. Grew up in similar environments, but 1 degree in the wrong direction, and totally different outcomes. And I also know that there was fortunate situations in my upbringing, if you will, where I had a cousin who encouraged me to do well in school, because I wouldn't go to the NFL, if you will, if I didn't take my grades seriously. And just a conversation on a tennis court, if you will, from traveling to California. My mother sent me when I was 12 years old. That one conversation gave me the aspiration to come back and treat my academics seriously, and went from being an average, C student, just enough to get by, to being a straight A student that led me to an Ivy League school. I didn't know anything about Ivy League schools, but and throughout my career, just realizing those, conversations and seeing someone that had what you want or you can aspire to and how it inspires you, just made me realize that if we could have more systems in place to build that pipeline from cradle to C-suite, if you will, would be really powerful, especially in communities that don't have as much a structure around how to advance. So I've always been around building the pipeline. I believe serving on boards is one aspect that gives people not only a view of what it's like to serve at the top of an organization and what that looks like, and prepare them to be in leadership roles. And again, as leaders in their organization or leaders on boards, if they're conscious and calculated about how they can make an impact, then it could be kind of 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will, not only growing leaders, but also showing them how to be impactful, to make sure that they can kind of really strengthen that pipeline of talent for our youth, who are, benefiting from a lot of these nonprofit organizations that may or may not have accuracy of solution because they're lacking that cultural capital and perspective from diverse talent to serve on their board and work within their organizations as well. So that's my theory of change and kind of thesis around how board service can really impact our community and strengthen that pipeline as well.
Oh, man. So first of all, I appreciate first your passion, but also your openness, right? I also grew up in North Philly, so I know and I've had trials and tribulations, and we can have a separate conversation around how you're just, like you said, 1 degree from being right here and having this conversation versus being someplace else, right? And, one of the things that I talk to people about is networking, and you've done this very, very well. What do you think people get wrong about networking, and what would you say to them to change that mindset to do it right?
Always say make deposits, versus withdrawals. Some people, they make a relationship and right away they're trying to withdraw from the account.
Yep. You're
getting overdraft fees and and damaging that relationship. Where I've always been of the mindset of make deposits, and if you make enough deposits and help enough people get what they want, you in turn get what you want. You say, you reap what you sow. I say you reap more than what you sow if you sow good seed. So that's been my philosophy, to make deposits with no expectation of withdrawals, and I think ultimately you win on the other side.
awesome. That's a great lesson. So let's talk about hard lessons. What hard lesson did you have to learn or change you had to make to realize this vision that you have?
One is no money, no mission. So you also have to be very intentional about how to monetize your talents as well. You can make deposits, but also it requires withdrawals to grow as well. So early on, did a lot of things where you're saying, there's a lost leader, kind of leading with value, but not necessarily setting a business model on the back end to make sure you monetize at some point within that value chain as well. So as we've evolved and been able to build, DiverseForce, where we have a strong business model behind it, gives us the opportunity to feed our mission with your point, which is cash flow. and continue to grow it and scale it as well. So probably early on with also and spent just as much time on the back end, making sure that we monetize and grow the revenue in a way that we can deposit back into the business and continue to grow it and add more value to those who can benefit from our mission.
Awesome. Awesome. So you've already achieved maybe some of your visions, right? And you are what I call a visionaire. And that's what I'm interviewing. And that's what my audience is. They're either visionaires or future visionaires. But most visionaires that I know don't stop dreaming. So tell me, what vision are you currently pursuing?
Yeah, and I'll say there's a being a visionary is a double-ended sword, if you will. I don't know if you've ever read the book Rocket Fuel or Traction, where they talk about visionaries and integrators. So hopefully, visionaries find those integrators who can also help them to execute those the vision, because it keeps on getting bigger. My operations partner, she always talks about the rainbows, because as always the vision continues to get bigger. To your point, but kind of as I alluded to, is that cradle to career or cradle to C-suite pipeline. Obviously, it's a long continuum, but what we're continuing to work on is how do we scale? How do we fix the leaks, the gaping holes in that pipeline, to be more systematic around advancing talent to really truly tap into their full potential, if you will. We are building an 11,000 square foot facility in Germantown of Philadelphia, an opportunity zone, which we're calling a co-working, co-learning, co-impacting space, where we can be very intentional about building community, educating and empowering folks, as well as connecting to great opportunities like board service and advancement opportunities. And we are looking at, as a social enterprise, fundraising to be able to scale that on that as well. So really developing that system by which we can help those who did everything right, went to school, got the good grades, and went on to college, and now they're looking to pursue that American dream. And unfortunately, we're unemployed and underemployed at a disproportionate rate. And I believe because hasn't really been an infrastructure system behind how do we advance our next generation of leadership. And what we see is many times diversity dies in the middle of organizations where folks are not getting into the senior leadership organizations. And there's a number of pieces to that. It's not only mentoring sponsorship. It's also the understanding that, performance only takes you but so far, but you have to build your image and exposure as well. And think about, being intentional about what are those core competencies that get to the top of organizations. And then also organizations being more inclusive as well, so that they can actually cultivate that talent. So that's the challenge that we're looking to solve on a large scale, and looking to build out a platform and the people and the processes to make that happen.
Wow, that's amazing. As I alluded to earlier, you and I, we haven't spent much time together, but I'm a fan. I've watched you grow tremendously, and everybody in Philadelphia knows your name, and you're making a tremendous impact. So if nobody's ever said thank you, I want to thank you for that, because we need leaders to help us in the communities and to grow. And with myself being a natural teacher, that's one of the things that I've always tried to do as well. Of course, I've never done it to your magnitude, but really do appreciate everything that you do.
I really appreciate those kind words, Curtis. And I've watched you on social media and saw you supporting the work we're doing. And I really appreciate those kind words.
Awesome. So listen, drop a dime on us, right? Give the audience this one thing you would leave us with, that you just think we all should know.
One thing that we all should know. I would just say that, really reflecting on life. And I think that, one, we have to be continuous learners. Things are changing very quickly. Things are moving fast. And, I've heard someone say that, that things are moving faster than they've ever moved in history. Technology is moving fast in history, and it'll never never beat again. And the reality that we have to make sure that we continue to be continuous learners, and also recognize that, we can chase success. But as John C. Maxwell says, success is when you add value to self. Significance is when you add value to others. And although it may sound, noble and just a moral thing to do, hopefully you didn't disconnect here, but the moral thing to do, but at the same time, it's also selfish in the respect that the emotional and spiritual revenue that you get, not just the financial revenue from making an impact, is very rewarding and fills your happiness bucket, not just success bucket. So sometimes we chase success and don't really make an impact and be significant. So I encourage people to do both. That's why I'm a big fan of social entrepreneurship, the opportunity to have the financial, spiritual, and emotional revenue that you get from making an impact, as well as making a profit as well. So that's just my personal perspective on life, and it resonates with folks. Hopefully they take that in as well.
Awesome. I like it. So what do you, how can people get in touch with you? They want to know more about Diverse Boards, or what do you want people to get in touch with you about?
Yeah, DiverseForce on boards is something that we're continuing to grow. So certainly we're looking for companies to sponsor their high potential and emerging leaders within the organization of color, that mid to senior level professionals, nonprofit organizations that will diversify their boards. We have support for them, and then also professionals who want to sponsor themselves into a program and advance themselves by going to DiverseForceOnBoards.com. Which we have interest forms for all those different areas. And then also LinkedIn is my platform of choice. So folks can slide into my DM and, we can definitely answer any questions you may have as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You've been a terrific guest, and I've always thought that you would be. I'm glad that you joined me. So thank you again. Really do appreciate having you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Curtis.
Hey, it's Dawn Mahan with Accomplish More.